Thank you, Martha, for that lovely prelude. We have a guest on our bass today. We welcome Britt Heaps. And Nick is with us, per usual, on percussion. Yay, Nick. I'll get this mask off by the time I'm done announcing. And Lauren Sheely is our soloist today, I think. I think I must have put my microphone on over that. There we go. So good morning. This is my first time having you here and there. And you know, I always said I wanted to be a talk show host. So feel free to laugh and clap at the right times. No, but we are excited to begin opening up more into having you all in-house, and certainly continue to welcome those of you who are still in your pajamas at home or wherever you may be, and you may be new to us, so we welcome you to this community virtually as well. And to that end, we always want to tell you ways that you can connect with us. I will tell you, for those of you in-house, we haven't perfected the size of the slides that happen online. We'll get there. So you will get some slides, but you won't see all of the announcements. So rest assured we're working on that. So ways that you can connect with us, you should be seeing that on your screen, and it's good for you all to know as well. On our website, you can sign up for our newsletter that we send out weekly with updates of what we're up to. And you can also check out our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, so anytime we do a live stream or anything, you will see the latest version of that. And certainly liking us on Facebook is another way that you can support us. The other thing that I'm really excited about, and when we all finally get together and we can really look at it, is our app. Oh, I left my phone somewhere. There it is. But we have our own app now, and you can download that on your smartphone by texting the phrase Unity Denver app. There's a space between Unity Denver and space, then app, to the number 77977. And that will download our app that has kind of all the latest and greatest, and it's right there on your phone, kind of like your bank app, right? Remember when we used to say there's an app for that? That was like 10 years ago, wasn't it? Oh, it seems like yesterday. So, well, I'm excited about that because you can do almost everything right from your phone. So check that out when you have time. So we begin our time together this morning by affirming our credo. And that you do have on your screen. So together, let's affirm our God is love, our race is human, our faith is oneness. Today's reading comes from Eric Butterworth's Practical Metaphysics, beginning a book study on that in 2 weeks, April 21st. So if you're interested, you can check that out. And I'm reading from actually what he's offered as an meditation at the end of this chapter. So if you'd like to listen to that from that place, you can close your eyes and just hear these words. At the foundation of you, your life and your experience is the wholeness of the universal process expressing itself as you. And so we begin. Not so much a beginning in time, although it can be that too, but that it begins here in terms of a principle that is realized here. In the beginning, allness. Thinking in terms of what lies before you, the work you'll be involved in tomorrow, the physical experience, even the diagnosis and the prognosis of doctors who have judged your physical form. In every case, in the beginning, allness. Allness, allness, allness. Remember, wherever you are, the allness of God is present. And the allness of God is present because you're present. You are always and in all ways an eachness within the allness that is God.
There's a holy
So we take time now to relax in that presence, knowing no matter where we are, there is God. So we are each expressions of that allness. So we just take a deep breath in that presence, centering ourselves, opening ourselves, and for this time together, releasing as much as possible anything that may be occupying our minds or hearts, just to open up more fully to that presence. With every inhale, inhaling that presence more deeply, and every exhale, releasing anything that may stand in the way of that expressing through you fully. Connecting to that allness that contains all possibilities, all answers, ultimately our wholeness. And so we know in that space, all that is going on in and for and with us is welcome. There's room, there's space. And so we allow ourselves to be in the space in order to create that sense of spaciousness within us. Connecting to that wholeness, connecting to that presence. And as we do that, we also bring to mind into this time and space anyone on our minds and hearts, anyone in our world, really, we bring to our consciousness as connecting with that presence and that wholeness as well. May they feel that at the level of their challenge or their difficulty. May they never lose sight of that greater truth. That they, as we are expressing the fullness of that source of all creation, we have access to it. And so we see that expressing fully in and through those lives that are on our own minds and hearts, and we see it and open up to it expressing more fully through our lives. And as we do that, we are blessed. And so it is. Amen.
You are all my heart longs for, the treasure and the hunger. I've tasted and I must have more of your presence, God. You are all my heart longs for, the treasure and the hunger. I've tasted and I must have more of your presence, God. You call me deeper than before. I'm falling farther into you, God. You are just so beautiful. I love your presence, God. You are all my heart longs for, the treasure and the hunger. I've tasted and I must have more of your presence, God. You call me deeper than before. I'm falling farther into you, God. You call me deeper than before. I'm falling farther into you, God. You are just so beautiful. I love your presence, God.
Thank you, Lauren. That was beautiful as always. So, before I start, is my mic on? Before I start my lesson, I'm just a person. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, there we go. Before I start my actual lesson, I just want to, I planned this and I'm moving forward with it, but I've also just become more and more aware in the past few days, as maybe you have as well, this conversation that's starting around, who are we after this year, right? People recognizing ways in which there's something changing in them. Though we're beginning to return to normal activities, something feels different. Obviously, it's a little different because you're spaced out and you have a mask on. But beyond that, looking at sort of taking a deeper inventory of our lives, what matters, what we're ready to release, how we're ready to perhaps live more fully together, recognizing our interconnectedness. I don't know. I'm guessing you're experiencing some of that too. So I just acknowledge that, and I invite us all really to. There's always that tendency to want to get back to what's predictable, what's expected, what's comfortable, and that's understandable in our human predicament. But any opportunity that we have that slows that down and that shines the light on what really is holding up as truth in our lives, I think it's a great opportunity. So I hope that you're capturing that within yourself. And I think what we're experiencing is this: how do we integrate it? Like, how do we kind of recognize what's changed? Sometimes it's not really that. It's hard to explain, right? It's a sense of how it feels to be us now, individually and collectively. So I think that's an opportunity for us individually and collectively to consider how to integrate that as we move forward in meaningful ways so that we don't miss that opportunity. I say that because I read a great article. I'm not going to read the whole thing with you, but you might look it up. It was in the New York Times. That was entitled "I'm Not the Same," and I have a piece of it that I really kind of tickled me, but I'm going to wait to share it. And of course, I won't be able to find it, so we'll just move on. So the lesson today, from the reading, is also been inspired by my reading Practical Metaphysics by Eric Butterworth, which I've read much of Eric Butterworth, but I have not read this. And it's not written really as a book by Eric. It's more of a collection of his lectures and his talks over the years. He was a renowned Unity minister. I feel like I'm getting some feedback. I'm just going to say that and let somebody deal with it. And so it doesn't read quite as a book that he has written, but it's a powerful entry. And really, for any of us who have been in Unity or New Thought for years, there's always a to how these feel themselves in and through us. And so I have found it very meaningful as I've started reading it. And so nothing says practical like metaphysics. I mean, that's just a no-brainer, right? So I'll start by saying, just defining a little quickly what metaphysics is, and then how is it that it is so practical? And you already kind of know that basically a metaphysical lens is a way of seeing things. It's a point of view that takes into consideration what is beyond the physical realm, the physicality of us. So that part of us that transcends the physical, that part of us that is, we know that is beyond the here and now, or beyond the limitations of our personality or our judgments or our pain, right? There is something that transcends that. So metaphysics is a perception and a way of seeing the world. Metaphysics literally means beyond the science of nature. Academically, metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that studies the ultimate reality, truth beyond the physical realm, and generally asks these questions. What is the true nature of being? What is the nature of the universe? And how do we know what we know? And then unity, metaphysics would add to the spiritual perspective of that, what is the nature of God? And what is the nature of humanity? And what is the relationship between those two? And so, according to Eric Butterworth, he says metaphysics is basically a way of seeing life, the way of seeing the universe, a way of seeing spiritual thought. We are dealing with something that is to be practiced, and therefore it must be practical. So we think that metaphysics is not beyond the physical at all, but rather a perception of a higher dimension of the physical. Practical metaphysics is the persistence attempt to relate to the reality beyond appearances, but as a dimension of the experience. So practical, I find. And there's great wisdom in that. So the biggest part of it that's practical is that we are not denying the reality of our existence. There is some part of some spiritual approaches that sort of says that's an illusion or it's not to be taken very seriously. And I can understand some of that, but I find that that's not always very practical, right? Our life is happening in the physical realm, regardless of these absolute truths. So how can I integrate and know those and still take into account what's happening, that I have to go to work, that I'm late, yada, yada, yada. So there's that part that's about it because we are applying it to our life. And that really to be known at all, it has to be practiced. So we find ways of taking these higher spiritual truths and bringing them to life in our own life in practices. Of course, there are known practices like prayer and meditation, daily routines that keep us connected to those higher truths. But how do you do it in the moment, right? Those are the places that we really can come up with practical, in the moment practices. I think the last time I talked about the principle of oneness, which is really a foundational principle of unity upon which many of the other principles are based. That there is one power, one presence that is at the source of all creation. And all of creation is an expression of it. So, in a very real way, we are one with it because we are individual expressions of it. Eric Butterworth, as the reading said, always was fond of saying, God is an allness of which we are an eachness. So, and the cool thing about that he goes on to make very clear is though in and of ourselves we can't say, well, I am God, because the full capacity of God needs all of humanity and all of creation to express the fullness of it, right? But the eachness that we are does contain all of the aspects of the divine at the point of our own understanding, the point of our consciousness. So that we are the full range and all of the qualities that we can imagine God to be are accessible through us directly. And we're called, our greatest purpose is really to express that as fully and as deeply as we can in this physical experience. I had another point about that. Oh, so this idea of oneness, it's great. Oh, that's great. That's cool. Okay. There's one power, one presence. It contains all attributes and qualities that we would need, and we are an individual expression of it. Therefore, we are also connected to each other through that we are each individual expressions of that same allness. Oneness doesn't mean sameness, because we are expressing at very different levels, different cultures, different ages, different, all of this, but even all of that is social constructs, but I'm not going to go into that. So how do we practice this idea of oneness? And I'm reiterating what I said during my last talk, was that I had shared that from the reading of Valerie Carr's book, See No Stranger, to recognize that if that's true, then you are all an aspect of me in some way. If there's this allness that is expressing through each individual life, you could have been as well showing up as me as it is you. Like, I'm not saying that very clearly. Don't panic, I got it. It's really, you have to start with that bigger understanding that the allness, the fullness, the presence, the creative force of spirit that we call God is expressing through all of humanity. And so, though I might think of someone as an opponent or someone who is outside of my affiliation, but how can I too see that they are that expression as well? How can I relate to them in a way that keeps me in that conversation, in that connection, which Valerie shared some tactics of, first of all, saying you're a part of me that I do not yet know. It's an interesting way of staying connected, but also just seeing everyone as kind of, your aunt, your sister, your brother, your grumpy uncle, right? To stay in connection. And sometimes the people that are most difficult, you might just be able to say, I wonder what you had for dinner. Just to stay connected to that you're having an experience of your life as well. That is that you are aligned with your values and your problems and your fears. How can I stay connected with that when we seem to be opposing? And you probably have your own way. How do you consider what do you consider a practice of oneness? You don't have to yell it out all at once, but you can think about that. How does it express in your life? How do you show up as that presence of oneness? How do you stay connected to it in others? So Eric Butterworth says this: God is here because you are here. In other words, you and I are playing a huge role in allowing that actual presence and power of the divine to be known in this physical realm, through our conscious mind, through our experiences, through our thoughts and our words and our actions. And so we say, all the time that, and I've already said, our truest purpose is to express more of that into our life here and now. And Eric was often fond of saying, too, that God can do no more for you than God can do through you. So again, we're really taking ownership and relational value in that this isn't something out here that's doing something to me or for me or sometimes not. It's something that is expressing in me. And I think surely we've all had that experience, right, where it usually happens when we're going through a difficult time, a challenge, and we kind of meet the bottom line. We can't do it anymore with our usual ways. And oftentimes that is when we really sink into that presence. What am I missing here? What do I need? How can I see this as an experience that I can participate in fully, that's not happening to me to blow me over, but that is happening for me, to grow me. And so, as always, right, the good news and the bad news is it starts with us. It starts within. Eric says that God is present, all present, now, here. And the only way I can know God is to know God. The only way I can know God is to know myself and to find the depth of myself. And how do we do that? Any ideas? Well, it's very practical. We start where we are. We start with what we're struggling with. We start with what's hurting in us. But instead of approaching it from kind of the awareness of what's wrong with us or with someone else, we begin with this idea that I am an expression of this creative source. In the beginning, this is the other great lesson that he gives us, in the beginning, God. We tend to see that as in time and space. Before anything was, there was God, and then God started to create all the things. But he says, again, as a metaphysical approach, looking beyond just that sort of literal understanding, the foundation of all that is God. So you can think of that. That is my foundation. How do I start there? I still need to approach the problem, the issue, what's feeling wrong, but how do I start from that I have access to that foundation of me, that I am this eachness of the allness, right? How do I begin there? Because when you start there's an array of opportunities, of solutions, of ideas that aren't present when we're just sort of focused on the issue. Oh, there's just so many details about the issue and the drama of the issue and and if this person wouldn't do that, there wouldn't be an issue. We don't get very far in that. We're still going to go back to the issue, but we're going to take the highest perspective to consider. How is the presence of God, of absolute good, working through this situation? How's it working through me? How's it seeking to work through me? And what do I need to do in the here and now to express that more fully? So I love that that's just a simple thing you can do right in the grocery line when someone goes, what do they do these days? They stand too close to you, right? In the beginning, God, my foundation is the presence and the power of divine mind, of divine intelligence. Let me respond from that knowing. It's not always easy. In that article, which I wanted to share this one piece with you, there was this great line. So the article in the New York Times was really kind of a story. It interviewed many people about what has changed for them. What do they see that's different? And there were longer stories about actual things that had happened, and then there was just some sort of vignettes of, quick little quotes about what people had experienced. And I can't find it, but the guy says, this isn't how I wanted it to happen, but I have, by sheer necessity, have to develop a daily meditation practice just to sort of stay steady. And I appreciate that opportunity. That said, I kicked a hole in the bathroom wall yesterday. So you start where you are, and you keep coming back to it, right? So it had afforded him some great clarity and calmness, and he was still working out his frustration and in a very physical way. But I liked that. We don't just say, I'm the eachness of the allness, and everything just magically disappears or isn't difficult for us anymore. But we have a new vantage point and a new perspective from which to see that. And so it begins by finding that depth of ourself. I used to, often when I would lead meditation, I would just say, on your in-breath, God is, on your out-breath, I am. My mic is okay. And now I realize that you can do that anywhere, anytime. And what that is just is that I am of you is of God. God is I am. That is that I am of me. That we know transcends any challenge, any difficulty. But we have to stay centered in that as we deal with each of those challenges and difficulties. Oh, I've put too many words on the page. Yeah, the bottom line is it's a practice. What makes it practical is that it is a practice, moment by moment, day by day. And just like with anything you practice, Some days are better than others, right, Martha? And you practice long enough, you don't even need to really look at the keys anymore. That's true for anything. Does it take some time and some focus and some energy? Of course, anything that's worth anything does. But we practice. Practice knowing yourself as the presence. Practice that as you come up against anything that's challenging you, anything that's painful in you. Let that presence be with you and guide you through that process, knowing that you do not have to do it from the level of your, I say egoic mind, not to make that bad. It's necessary for us to navigate this world, but that there is that of us that is above that. And so we begin from that level until it becomes second nature, practicing. So that I thought of, how can we reverse the tendency oftentimes when we're really triggered or really challenged? We really do go into that sort of defense mode, into that judgment mode, into that who's right and who's wrong and who's outside of the circle of belonging. How can we continue to practice in such a way that we begin? The first step is, in the beginning, God, my foundation is God. How can I breathe in, just even for a moment, God is, I am, and begin to then address the conflict or the issue from that? It still might be challenging, still might not change, but it affords us, I think, a greater opportunity and greater variety, if you will, of responses and outcomes. So as I started to say, that whole I'm an eachness of the allness, the other quote that demonstrates that sort of is, or the other part of that teaching that is so meaningful is, wherever spirit is at all, the whole of spirit must be. So there's not a little bit of spirit in you and a lot more in you and none in you, and right? If that's true, that we are all expressions, then the fullness of that spirit is present within each and every one of us. And it's up to us to prove that, to look for the ways that we don't quite believe that, or don't quite live into that, or don't quite understand what that means. And here's the great thing: anytime you make that move toward that understanding, I find that I always have a greater understanding of the truth of that. If I'm willing to try it out, it doesn't feel like I have the presence, doesn't feel like I have all that I need in this moment, that I'm terrified or that I'm feeling unsure of myself. Let me test it. Charles Fillmore was fond of saying, the co-founder of Unity, you have to feel around for God. Feel around for God within you. That voice that is calling you, that voice that says, do you really want to say that? It's not a voice like that. I shouldn't say that. That's kind of our interpretation. But how can I be, if I'm going to be that presence and experience and be that in the here and now, it does change the way I say things. And we're invited into that every moment. And we can begin again. So I'd like to just take that into a time where you can contemplate that for yourself, this being, this presence, and how that shows up in you, and how you can connect with it. I should say one more thing, that part of that practice, obviously the most obvious one that we refer to, is having a regular time of prayer and meditation where you can learn techniques to sort of release the busyness of your thinking in order to connect with that presence, which is sort of that witness behind all of that busyness. What is that part of us that notices all of our thoughts and that notices our judgments or our fears, but isn't caught in them, but notices them? That's the place that we want to spend a little time to then inform our experience. And so beyond meditation, find places and the spaces and the things that make that presence more known to you, be that nature, be that music, be that movement, other forms of artistic expression, you know what it is. To be sure that you're taking time and spending time in meaningful ways that afford you that connection to the presence within you. Again, not outside of you. And it takes some practice because oftentimes we've been very cued into the voice of the critic and the judge and the victim. Those have been the loudest voices in our mind. So it just takes a little time. I know it can be frustrating at first when that's all that's going on, but keep practicing. So I am going to invite us to take a time in the silence to consider this, all that I've said, which has been a lot of words for ourselves. So just invite you to get comfortable, take a deep breath, close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you, knowing this is a safe space, and taking a deep breath. I invite you to consider this question and what comes up for you as I just ask. Actually, you would ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? And often it begins with maybe a social identification or a role. You're a woman, you're a spouse, you're a son, you're a brother. Just notice what kind of comes first. Maybe I'm an expression of God. And you might continue just, who am I? That begins to explore some affiliations. I'm a Christian. I'm a heterosexual. I'm a American. I'm a Republican. All of those affiliations that we have, that we can associate as part of who we are. Continuing to consider, who am I? Sometimes, too, what begins to come up is just attributes, right? I'm smart. I'm compassionate. I'm lazy. I'm a procrastinator. Just notice those qualifications that may come up. Notice the thoughts and feelings that come up around those. Not attaching any meaning, just noticing. And continuing in that understanding of relating to who you are, remembering this notion in the beginning, at your foundation, is the allness of spirit. Considering who you are in light of that truth. And it may be from that place, it's more of a possibility. It's not fully defined, it's not done. When I consider myself to be an expression of the presence of divine mind, divine love right here, right now, who am I? And from that place, how do I move through the world? What is mine to do? And again, just noticing that presence behind all of those associations that is holding it all, not for better or for worse. This is how you are expressing in the world. But there is always more to you, isn't there? So we just release any thoughts of uncertainty or resistance that may be coming up. Any ways we might want to somehow limit that truth from really having its way with us. Things that might come to our mind, well, I wouldn't have done this if I was really that. That's not true. Wherever spirit is at all, the wholeness, the fullness of spirit is as well. And so we let that fullness just work through us, be known in us, as us. And we know as our highest truth, the highest and truest part of us is always available, always present. And this truth awaits you at any time and in any place. So we just open up from this day moving forward to let that guide us more, support us more, express through us more. Calling us up into the truest, purest version of ourselves. From that place of wholeness. From that place within us that knows the allness of God. So we move forward today connected to that, recognizing that I am of us is the expression of that allness. And more consciously and purposefully connecting to it and expressing it. Really giving ourselves permission to be the best we have to offer in this day, in this rendition of ourselves. And for the opportunity to know this, remember this, and grow into this presence and in this awareness, we are grateful.
I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. To be all I can be. To be all I can be.
Yeah, you can clap. Thank you. So now is the time in our service where we would collect an offering. We won't be passing that around. For those of you who don't give electronically, there are baskets at the back you can drop your check or cash into when you leave. Those of you who are online are probably seeing some options that you can, ways that you can give digitally. Is that correct? Electronically? Yes. And we will together bless our offering. Together, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am thankful. And as always, we let you know that we are so thankful and so grateful for your continued support. You haven't been in this building except for the last 2 weeks, and you've continued to make your financial support known to us, so we thank you for that.
Up on the heights, oh, oh, you let me go, oh, oh, you make my heart to rise from the depths below. You hold me up, oh, oh, so I can see, oh, oh, you're ever lifting me, you're ever lifting me. You lifted my head so I know you're near me. You lifted my eyes so I see you clearly. Where I belong, you are where I belong. I'm lifting my voice just to sing a new song. I'm lifting my hands just to show you I know where I belong. You are where I belong, and you are ever lifting me. Oh, you are ever lifting me. Oh, up on the heights, oh, oh, you let me go, oh, oh, you make my heart to rise from the depths below. Oh, you hold me up, oh, oh, so I can see you, oh, oh, you're ever lifting me, you're ever lifting me. You lifted my head so I know you're near me. You lifted my eyes so I see clearly where I belong. You are where I belong. I'm lifting my voice just to sing a new song. I'm lifting my hands just to show you I know where I belong. You are where I belong, and you are ever lifting me. Oh, you are ever lifting me. Oh, fill my heart to know the length of your great love, and where you go, I go. You take my heart above, and nothing on earth compares. Oh God, when I'm with you, you take me higher, you take me higher. You fill my heart to know the length of your great love, and where you go, I go. You send my heart above, and nothing on earth compares. Oh God, when I'm with you, you take me higher, you take me higher. You lifted my head so I know you're near me. You lifted my eyes so I see clearly where I belong. You are where I belong. You lifted my head so I know you're near me. You lifted my eyes so I see clearly where I belong. You are where I belong. I'm lifting my eyes just to sing a new song. I'm lifting my hands just to show you I know where I belong. You are where I belong, and you are ever lifting me. Oh, you are ever lifting me. Whoa, you are ever lifting me. Oh, you are ever lifting me. Oh.
That was great, thank you. Just a few quick announcements before we depart. The book study, it'll actually be better than my talk, trust me. On Practical Metaphysics starts Wednesday the 21st via Zoom. You can sign up for that on our website or the app. Also, just a reminder that today the kids lesson led by Natalie, for those of you online, will start at 11:15. We pushed it just a little forward since we were ending right at 11, so at 11:15 you can Get your kiddos ready for that on Facebook or YouTube. And we also have fellowship today via Zoom at 11:30, and you can find that link in your newsletter. You will have to race home if you want to do that. But what was the other thing I wanted to remind us? Oh, we're going to do the prayer for protection today, which is the one that David has updated, and I know, gosh, I hope I have it. We got some feedback like, hey, man, that's like a traditional unity prayer, and you're just adding words to it. It would be like adding words to Edgar Allan Poe. That'd be weird, though, because there's like crows and stuff. Anyway, which is true. There is the essence of that prayer by James Dillett Freeman. But what I love about this and what's awesome about today is that it begins to say, okay, the light of God surrounds me. How does that show? What does that mean? We're expressing that I am the light of God. And then another practical step, which he's added, as light, I illumine my world. So it's sort of like as we reflect that. So just keep that in mind as we're doing that today. We can do that together, the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. As light, I illumine my world. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. As love, I live empathy, understanding, and compassion. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. As power, I co-create a world of love, unity, and equality for all. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. As presence, I stand in truth in every circumstance. For we are, God is. Amen. Oh, look, we have Paul Hasselbeck involved in that as well. Okay. Now we're going to have Lauren sing us out with Love Can Move the World, and you'll stay seated, and the ushers will escort your safe exit from the back forward.
Love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move this world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the trees. Feel the wind of love increase as we move this world to peace. Come love the world with me. Come love the world with me. So good to see you guys.